all ya hobby horn dogs. Rodge here, back again for another Saga Thursday. Today we are going to wrap up our review of the Welsh battleboard. Now, helping me, same as last time, we got the Silver Fox, Mr. John Stentz, and I don't feel the need to go on about this any further. Let's just get into it. Okay, why don't you tell us about taunting?
Sure. So taunting is an activation. And you're discarding this die, and you're designating an enemy unit that may not be the enemy's warlord. So that unit is activated for a movement, and it must move as close as possible to the closest of your units, engaging it in melee as possible. So it costs a dragon, which seems pretty reasonable considering you're making that unit come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you might already sense how this combos with the one we just did. Like, hey, I'm right over here in the woods, right near you. Why don't you come over here and get ambushed?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that is super cool. Yeah, I think working with ambush is really good. Combo that with strength, and numbers. Yeah, we're on the same page there.
In both of them.
Uh-huh. Why not? And yeah, or even just kind of early on, just picking that unit, drawing them out, and kind of
it's a good way to break up that battle line.
Mm-hmm. Because especially sometimes, when they, in the first turn or two, when they activate units, usually the one unit gets a double activation anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of to move up. So usually, there is one unit ahead of their guys anyways. Mm-hmm. So you could just throw a taunting on top of that, and all of a sudden that unit is 12 inches away from everybody else and is surrounded by half-naked dudes with javelins.
Right. Because that unit is berserkers, because they didn't come all the way because they're coming next turn. But now all of a sudden they're by themselves. Let's shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then as a just kind of an all-purpose kind of save your bacon thing too, if you have you kind of overextended yourself in one spot, you can kind of use this depending on where your units are to kind of shunt the enemy towards the opposite direction of where they need to go if you left your warlords ass in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's definitely a lot of possibilities. Do you use this one frequently?
Yeah, I do. This is the term the die roll when you roll your saga dice and you're just praying for you're like, listen, I just need one dragon here because I've set it up. I've got the plan. I'm going to suck them into the woods, ambush, or just do strength in numbers. Or, the beauty of it is if you can get that terrain piece, that's you get the hard cover.
Yeah.
So you get that boost in your defense, and you suck them in because they are the aggressors here. They charged you. And you get the bonuses there. You get maybe the ambushes. I mean, it's really an awesome ability.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point about the defensive thing where you want to fight in the woods, but a lot of the times I found myself wanting to attack in the hard ground, and they were defending against me. I was using my abilities, but they're blocking everything on fours, which is super annoying. So
it is. It's so much better than on fives. So much. Not even statistically better. It's always just so much better than it should be.
It's just stupid how much of a difference that makes. I can't even explain it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, going down. This one's called Rising Out. The Rising Out.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a dragon and an uncommon, so it's gonna have to be pretty good. And I look at it, discard these dice to activate all your warriors and levies, and they may not engage in melee with this activation. So it actually is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. To me, this one just seems like it's the this is a turn where all my stuff's gonna shoot you, and if you've brought warrior heavy warband, then this one is a great value.
Yeah. So we do have to point out, correct, that Hearthguard aren't included in this for
Right.
whatever particular reason. But it's pretty good. There might be an ability a little further down. Maybe the Hearthguard can get in on that one. But before that, we can do War Dance, which is a melee ability that uses an uncommon and a rare. Discard these dice. Add between 1 and 3 fatigue to one of your engaged units. Gain 1 attack die and 1 defense die per fatigue added. Yeah, what do you think about this one, Silver Fox?
Let me see here. Discard these 2 dice, including that dragon that you covet.
Dragon.
So, yeah.
They're definitely coveted.
Yes. And then you add some fatigue to your engaged unit, and then you gain some attack dice. So I think in this situation, my opponent is the aggressor, and I'm doing my step 3 abilities, my melee and stuff after them, because I just don't like the idea of adding fatigue, knowing that they're going to go after me on their step 3, then they're going to use that fatigue and counter. Oh, great, I got some dice, but now I'm easier to hit. So I don't feel like I came out ahead on that.
Completely countered, over countered, thrown under the table. That's a really good point. This is defensive only, and even then you're just buying yourself a little time before those fatigue are going to bite you in the a-hole. This kind of gives this away to me as a kind of one of the first wave of battle boards, because they have a few different abilities scattered out where you just can give yourself a bunch of fatigue or as part of an ability, and it's never worth it. So I don't know what, their perception of how fatigue and powerful it was back then wasn't quite fully formed. But I really can't recommend trying to use this one.
I would say if I was looking at it now in rebalancing stuff, I'd probably put it at the common and the uncommon. I don't think it warrants the rare. No,
absolutely not. If it's going to keep the fatigue penalty, even just like a single die of something, like you probably most of the time
maybe an uncommon
wouldn't use it.
Yeah,
but we could always use an uncommon somewhere on this board, and it would have been nice to be able to use it here.
Well, I'll tell you, the Welsh love the dragon, the national symbol, and they have it everywhere. So maybe that is a carryover to this battle board.
That must be
everywhere.
Okay, so we're gonna round it out with the big one here. They do have a double rare. Not everybody is lucky enough to have one. This one, Answering the Call. So it's an activation. Discard these dice to activate your warlord and all units within L of him. So that is a 24-inch circle.
That's a big circle.
Probably in the middle of the table, and you're probably going to get all your guys in there most of the time. Especially if you're cognizant that this is something that you can do. So you're going to be, actively keeping at least one guy of those outward units still within that bubble. You can't engage in melee with these activations, and these activations do not generate fatigue, which is super awesome.
Right.
This one's awesome. So it activates everybody. So it's kind of just like a souped up version of the Rising Out. That you can use it on your warlord and the Hearthguard in addition. And then as a bonus, you don't get any fatigue. So this is when you're looking at second activations, when you already moved up, shot. And if you're a really lucky son of a bitch, you already used Rising Out with your dragon and your uncommon, and then you pop these 2 dragons down here.
Yeah, because this is the turn you just rolled all dragons. This is when you do this.
Yeah. So there is some potentially juicy stuff that can be happening here in the shooting phase.
Oh yeah.
So you're kind of limited into just pelting them with javelins, but you can do some nice movement tricks. But I think it can potentially be a little underwhelming just because of how dicey shooting can be, where you could pop this and like literally nothing could happen potentially.
Right. You're like,
just as
2
far
dragons,
as-
I killed 1 guy, 1 warrior.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But I think it definitely plays in with your whole shtick. And, you know, if you're moving, shooting, you're popping the rising out, answering the call, I think the imagery is really good of you just pelting the enemy with wave after wave of javelins. You know, even though there might not be that much stuff happening, I think it's super cinematic. So, yeah, that is the board. Now I see some people will load up one of these double rares with a rare and then kind of store that there and then come back to it in future turns. Is this one of those abilities where you would do that?
I might. I think it's just it depends kind of answer, because it's going to depend on what is your opponent got, what are they doing, you know, how are you attacking them, are you coming at them in a, you know, 24 inches is a big circle, but you know, if you've got one part of your force flanking one way and the other part flanking the other way, then if your units aren't all together, you're not going to get as much bang out of your buck here. They got to all be right in that bubble.
Okay, so you don't really get this one that often necessarily.
Yeah, I don't really bank it. It's not like Ragnarok when I play Vikings and I'm like, yep, that S is going right there, and we'll see you later. Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, okay, so we can discuss a little tactics and maybe army list construction. So one thing, if you didn't catch our references to it, but yeah, there are 5 of the 10 special abilities which require a dragon, which is the rare, in order to use them. And I found this out in my very first game because in my game against Barnaby, we played 8 turns of, I think we were doing Sacred Ground, where you have to capture stuff in the middle. Yep. And I rolled exactly 1 dragon over 8 turns with full 6 Saga dice each turn. So 1 out of 48 dragons. And
Joe, you have to roll better. You can't be good at this game if you don't roll better.
Yeah, it was about turn 3 or 4 maybe. I was like, wow, this can't really do too much here. Like, I really need the dragons here in order to do the good stuff.
I've noticed that, and this is just conjecture, but you know, having played against a number of different boards and you know, war bands that use these set of dice, I have seen people roll so few dragons over multiple games where I wonder, like, is this particular set manufactured? Like, is there something wrong with the way they're weighted? Like,
oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna have to make some homemade dice here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because this is where you want to use your specially weighted made dice, right, Joe?
Yeah. Well, I found the regular Saga dice only have 1 rare side, and you know, if you really want to get good at this, you're going to need at least two sides with a rare.
And just the special one in there that's got 3 just because.
Just because. I mean, they're not going to really pick up on that third one. If it's just that one, that single.
Yeah. If it's just a single.
So, yeah. So I didn't get a lot of these dragons, and I think there are some cool abilities that you can use, particularly hit and run and taunting. But I think your meat and potatoes, I think you're still doing all right. I mean, some boards just really require the dragons or the rares to get the full use out of them. You know, this is one of them, but I think there's still enough to get things done for the most part. I think if you're a pretty cagey guy and use the terrain to your advantage, because yeah, I guess 4 of these I would say are movement type abilities more than shooting. So, yeah, I guess kind of thinking about it, it's more like a movement army necessarily than like an all-out shooting army.
Oh yeah,
perhaps. Which I guess I kind of thought I was more shooting going into it, but after going through this with you and that first game, yeah, they do have a lot of nice movement abilities. So, okay. So when you're building a list, what really strikes your fancy here? Are you going to leave the levies at home?
Yeah, I'm leaving the levies at home.
Okay, yeah. There's a lot of bands that do that.
Yeah, I don't feel like my personal philosophy on list build is, well, most of the war bands I play, minus the Saxons, where I always have 2 points in levy, but I started playing the Scots and started with levy and found that they just stood there and didn't do anything because they don't really. They just the war band. I try to play it to the advantages you get on your abilities, and I just didn't see that was happening. And
exactly, I kind of, you have to have a board that kind of builds into those, taking those levy units. Now, I kind of think that this board actually, you could be pretty successful with the levies.
Well, they do get the bows or the slings, so you have the range, a little range.
Because you're gonna have the terrain stuff going on to kind of slow them down, and you won't be slowed down. You got the strength lies in number ability that can kind of instantly boost your meager combat ability. But if you're shooting, you're just going from 3 attack dice to 6 if you're getting all 12 guys in there. But yeah, I think for the most part, they're not really doing anything different than what your Warriors and Hearthguard are going to be doing. Right. And you're getting a lot better bang for your buck. So between Warriors and Hearthguard, do you go for a mix, or do you have a ratio you like to follow with this particular warband as compared to maybe a different one?
I've tried a few different things. I tend to go at least 4 points in Warriors. I just like having some big packs. I like having some 10-man packs. And then I've played around with a couple points in Hearthguard and done the 8-man Hearthguard pack, because still you get some advantages here with your board and having the shots or the fights. I've seen some people play 4-man Hearthguard packs, but they're just not that strong. Is kind of how I felt about them. But if you in with taunting, you can kind of mess with people like we talked about earlier. If you get like a little pack of Warriors over here as a distraction, you can pull something off the edge and focus then on fighting out, fighting them with a numbers advantage, because if they're running a big unit of guys down one side, you can pull them away from the battle line, and then it takes longer for them to come back.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So you like to kind of run between kind of like 6 and 10-man units, kind of? Is that kind of what you're saying? So do you ever use, now in my game I use 2 just 4-man units of Warriors, which I've never really done before. I know sometimes people will do that just to get like an extra Saga die generating unit that doesn't really do much. I've never done it before, and it was kind of interesting. They don't, I don't know. I'm kind of undecided about them. So you kind of wouldn't really take any 4-man units of Warriors, let's say?
I have, and I will typically have those guys standing next to the Warlord. They're just...
okay. So not...
Because I don't feel as confident with the Welsh in using my Warlord as the battering ram that other war bands use their Warlords as. There's no abilities on here that are Warlord specific. Really, in terms of, there's no Brett Walda to make them harder to kill, or The other ones, like Irish, have got a bunch of ones that all of a sudden make the warlords a lot just tougher, and with the Welsh don't have that. So it depends on the scenario you're playing, but it seems like in any game, when you lose your warlord, you just gone to the underhand, and you're just like, oh man, I lost Saga dice and that free activation with that free we obey, and yeah, it's bad. So having a 4-man group hanging out by him just to catch any errant bowfire or whatever, it's not a bad plan.
Okay, yeah, he's kind of like a cleanup type dude. Maybe where if you are going to go into combat, things are already looking pretty good for you and it's pretty safe. That's when you kind of throw them in.
Right.
Okay, so we talked about kind of your units and stuff like that. So when we get down to a game, like actually how does it play out as shooting kills go, and how many kills you do in combat versus how many kills versus shooting, and I guess kind of what your goals are with your javelins. Do you like really try to concentrate them all together, or are you just, if they can do anything, are you happy with that? And because with shooting and the small units, you're not rolling a lot of dice. In any given turn, you just can't really count on it to do anything. So how do you build your battle plan around these when you can't ever really count on doing anything with your shooting?
Yeah. Usually my battle plan with the Welsh is use the shooting to just thin them down a little bit. Hopefully, peel some guys off their units so you can trigger the advantage from the strength and lines and numbers ability. Just the advantages of bringing them into the woods, getting some more dice from ambush. Just doing that just to have a little bit of numerical ability, and then of course just killing a couple guys, that's just a few less dice coming back at you in ways of attacks. That's usually my plan, is just to thin them a little bit, and because I just don't believe the all-out shooting can yield what you really need. And it also depends on the scenario, because we've got some of those scenarios that you only gain your victory points from melee. Well, if your plan is just to shoot them apart, that plan just went out the window. I mean, I still think in those scenarios, it's good to shoot them a little bit, to thin them down, so you have the advantage in the melee. But yeah, like I've been on the receiving end of one particular Welsh build, which was I think it was 3 points of Hearthguard on ponies, so 12-man pony unit, which it can roll right up to you and just murder you with 12 shots. And if you don't roll good on your saves, then stuff dies quick to that, because on ponies, then it just rolls right out of there, and it's just hard to catch. It is literally a kind of a one-trick pony concept, because and it works great against, like in the particular game I had Northgale. I had no shooting defense, no counter fire, and we were playing a scenario that required we were playing Sacred Ground, so I had to go move out and take terrain pieces, and just got cut apart by shooting. I was having a bad dice rolling game too, where I was making less than half of my my saves against the shooting, and it's going downhill.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. We're knocking on shooting pretty hard, but sometimes you're going to throw 2 dice at Hearthguard, and you're going to kill 2 Hearthguard, and it's going to be pretty sweet.
It's going to feel good, yeah.
It's going to feel good. So definitely roll your dice, because you never know what's going to happen. So that's interesting. So he took a mounted unit of those big guys. Sounded like he kind of built almost his whole strategy around that one unit, kind of thinking hard, because a lot of these abilities we looked at are just foot only. You don't want to go in the woods with the horses, and it's kind of dice intensive too to do that, because it's a dice to move in and then it's a dice to move back out, and it's going to be your second activation, so you take a fatigue, and then at the start of your next turn you got to rest with that unit. So every time you do that, it's going to be a 3. You're not doing much else with anybody else, but if
you aren't, it's a, well, there's a banner in that unit, so the entire Welsh warband stands on the other side and just watches the Hearthguard and ponies. They do. The Hearthguard rolls out, it kills whatever it can kill, and then it rolls back across, and all the rest of the dice are rest, and it just rests up and gets ready to do it next turn. And then if you're figuring, well, they're getting a little close, well, you keep a dragon locked into hit and run. And that was actually what happened. You were talking to me about locking a dragon in. He locked a dragon on hit and run, and it sat there the entire game until I got close, and then it came out and it saved his bacon. So, and they ran away, but then they came back and shot me to death some more. So, it's a strategy. It's not very fun as far as being on the receiving end of it, because you just feel like, like I said, with North scale foot sloggers with no counter shooting, I'm like, well, I'll just see if I can roll some saves, I'll be okay.
It's gonna be a little rough.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, because a lot of times, we just talk about the pure kind of combat abilities of units and stuff like that in a vacuum, but I think it really does. The scenarios a lot of the time do a pretty good job of kind of balancing out the gimmicky type things. So I'm kind of surprised that you didn't do that well in that one, because of the controlling the terrain pieces. I mean, weren't you out there kind of accumulating points, or he was kind of killing guys faster than you were?
I lost on the first turn before I even got to go. That unit came across the board and killed 2 5-packs of warriors.
Oh,
and
wow.
then left. So I lost 2 units and 2 Saga dice on the first turn before moving.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was. Well, that's the problem with Sacred Ground, is that the game is so long. It was 8 turns. I was winning through like the 6th turn, but then, but
the attrition, the
attrition and
caught up with you.
The warriors who were standing and watching, they were standing in their terrain piece across the board, and then I made some moves to like try to get that. I made a suicide run on those ponies, and the dice gods just didn't agree that I should kill them. I pretty much whipped it out, and that was it. I tried to go for the gusto.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, well, I only have one last thought, I think, about the Welsh, and that is to claim. You definitely want to claim the terrain pieces first and get your guys in them, because if you let the enemy get into them, it can be really actually kind of tough to get them out, because when you're shooting at them, you're really not going to do anything to them when they're in the woods. And the combat benefits really come from defending in those terrain pieces. So you want to be in there and have them trying to flush you out. You don't want to be the one going in there trying to be the aggressor, kind of like what you were saying, using the taunting to get them to come at you. Because a lot of your movement bonuses, for Children of the Land, stuff like that, if they're just sitting in the woods, we're not going to be able to move through it anyways. So I think in my future games, I'm going to try harder to kind of do double moves and stuff like that to really get up there and kind of claim those pieces as my own first, and then have them come at me, because in my game against Bear, he kind of claimed them first, and then I had a tough time kind of really trying to drive them out of there. Because you don't have a lot of melee abilities that are going to help you.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
A lot.
Like if you're looking for ways to play your Welsh and get better at, Saga, is figuring out like this. I don't do this. I just, when I put down terrain, I just kind of eyeball it, and I'm just like, yeah, man, it looks nice there. I'll just put it here, But I mean, if you're more systematic about it, and and you're figuring out, okay, just what you said, I need to get in this terrain first. It needs to be to my advantage, and then how far out of my deployment zone should it actually be so I can actually accomplish that? Because just knowing how far you should put it out and making those plans ahead of time during the terrain deployment can give you a leg up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then definitely, I think it's something that might take a few games under your belt, but just knowing like kind of where to put that terrain, like where the action's going to go down.
Yeah.
A lot of that is scenario dependent, but if it's too deep in your deployment zone, you're just hunkered down. They might not ever make it over to you.
Right. They might just ignore you then.
Yeah. So that may or may not be what you're looking for. So cool. Yeah. And I think just to remember that your dudes are just as good in close combat as the enemy. I mean, they're going to probably have a lot more abilities backing them up, but definitely I think when you're moving away and shooting and running away, your enemy can forget that your guys actually aren't any worse than theirs in close combat. And I think you can catch them out with that strength lies in number and ambush abilities. So cool. Well,
cool, man.
I am pumped. I can't wait to get some more games in with these guys. Do you have fun with these guys overall, would you say? And your opponents usually have fun as well?
I think so. Like, I like the maneuver, like you commented earlier. It's the challenge to play the warband is setting up that. Like for myself, I don't take a priest with the Welsh because like I just want to roll the dice and see what I get, and make the best of whatever I get, and try to figure it out, with the resources you have, and that's a lot of the fun for me. So, I mean, I think the Welsh are a little better with a priest if you're thinking about it.
That is one thing that usually we do talk about, but I think this is one for the enlightened priest, the one that you don't actually see a lot, which I'm not sure if he was really changed in the fact, but you can turn any dice into a rare. So
exactly, that's where I've seen it used, and I haven't, since the new fact with the priest changing, I haven't considered as much what they do, other than I know they got weaker. And as an old time Scottish player, I always felt a little dirty with the religious advisor, where they're without mercy.
I think I've heard of.
And they fixed that, and that's good. That's good for everybody. I mean, it was a big crutch for the Scottish players, but. I mean, a priest would probably help you out if you feel like it, but like I said, I think it's fun to try him without the priest.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think the enlightened one is actually kind of maybe pretty themey with these guys too, because he's kind of just like a hermit type dude, right?
Yeah.
So he kind of these dudes live out in the middle of nowhere, and he does too. So I think they can all get along. So. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, John. That was super informative. And
thanks, Joe.
we're definitely going to have you on again, right? Want to?
I love to.
Or is this this is it? Okay, good. Didn't scare you away. Awesome. Well, we will chat with you again soon.
Man, take it easy.
See ya. And that concludes our review of the Welsh battleboard. Huge thanks to John for coming on, helping me out, working me through all these abilities. And I learned a ton. I'm getting pretty pumped here
to get these Welsh back out on the table and get them running, see what kind of magic I can work up with these guys. So if you have any comments, questions about what you heard, go ahead, drop a comment below. Hit me up on Twitter at WiscoHornDog. Drop me an email, wiscohorndog@gmail.com. Any one of those will get your message over to my ass. So that is all you need to know about that. Otherwise, like, favorite this shit. Helps out a ton. Share this with a friend. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next Saga Thursday. And become a hobby horn dog today.
Saga!